Your kind doesn't belong here." 5 words, spoken in a hushed tone across the finest bone china that $400 per plate could buy. The year was 2010, and in the heart of Boston's financial district, these words still carried weight in certain circles. Diana Hardison's fingers brushed against her grandmother's pearls, a subtle gesture that had become her anchor in moments like these. Around her, the Four Seasons Oriental Hotel breathed old money. Crystal chandeliers cast shadows of privilege across marble floors, while silver spoons held generations of inherited power. But tonight, in this bastion of exclusivity, she wasn't just serving dinner. She was about to serve justice. At 23, wearing a perfectly pressed uniform and carrying a leather notebook full of evidence, Diana stood in the crosshairs of old money and older prejudices. For 8 months, she had documented every slight, every whispered comment, every calculated exclusion. Tonight, during a high-stakes meeting with Dubai investors, all of that patience would finally bear fruit. Andrew Duncan, the hotel's 38-year-old CEO, hadn't noticed her quiet documentation. He hadn't seen the MBA thesis taking shape, hadn't recognized the strategic mind behind the waitress's perfect service. He saw only what he expected to see. Until today. The $78,000 bottle of Chateau Lafite Rothschild 1982 sat in its cradle like a sleeping giant, waiting to play its part in the evening's transformation. In moments, this private dining room would become the stage for a confrontation that would shake the foundations of luxury hospitality. Sometimes revolution arrives dressed in a waitress's uniform, armed with nothing but truth and timing. And sometimes, 5 dismissive words become the catalyst that changes everything. When was the last time someone underestimated you? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might inspire others who are facing similar challenges today. Diana Hardison's journey to the Four Seasons Oriental wasn't a story of chance. It was a masterclass in strategic patience. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind daily. Excellence is the best response to prejudice. Born to educators in Massachusetts, Diana grew up watching her parents break barriers in academia. Her mother, the first Black woman to chair the economics department at Boston University, taught her that knowledge was currency. Her father, who transformed inner-city schools into centers of excellence, showed her how to change systems from within. By age 16, Diana had already mapped out her future. While classmates saw hospitality as just service work, she recognized it as a powerful intersection of business, culture, and human behavior. She worked weekends at local diners, studying customer psychology and management styles. Her high school guidance counselor questioned why a student with perfect SAT scores would spend time waiting tables. Diana simply smiled, knowing each shift was building her arsenal of real-world experience. At Cornell University, she maintained a perfect GPA while majoring in international business relations. Summers weren't spent at prestigious internships. Instead, she worked at hotels across Europe, mastering French in Paris, Spanish in Madrid, and Mandarin in Singapore. Each position, from housekeeping to front desk, added another layer to her understanding of the industry. Now at 23, her credentials were impeccable. Advanced sommelier certification, fluency in 4 languages, current MBA candidate with a 4.0 GPA, published research on luxury brand management, guest lecturer on hospitality innovation. But Diana kept these achievements quietly tucked away, like the small notebook in her apron pocket. Her position at the Four Seasons Oriental wasn't just a job. It was field research for her groundbreaking thesis, Transforming Corporate Culture, a bottom-up approach to luxury hospitality innovation. Her grandmother's vintage pearls weren't just jewelry. They were a reminder of the woman who'd cleaned hotel rooms for 30 years while earning her degree at night. "Baby," she'd said, gifting Diana the pearls, "sometimes you have to let them underestimate you while you're studying them." Your presence alone makes them uncomfortable. Let that discomfort do the work for you. Diana's application to the Four Seasons Oriental had been deliberate. The hotel's reputation for traditional values was well known in industry circles, code words that made her parents worry and her professors intrigued. But she saw something they didn't. An opportunity to document and transform a system from its foundation. Her interview with Melissa Lujan, the restaurant manager, had been telling. Despite Diana's extensive qualifications, Lujan had focused on whether she could handle the pressure of serving an exclusive clientele. The subtle implications weren't lost on Diana. They were carefully noted in her research journal, along with the date, time, and exact phrasing. Every shift provided new data. Every interaction revealed patterns. While guests saw a waitress carrying plates, they didn't see her mental calculations, analyzing service flows, documenting management decisions, and mapping power structures. Her thesis advisor had called her approach revolutionary, studying luxury hospitality culture through the lens of someone the industry typically overlooked. The Four Seasons Oriental's employee handbook spoke of inclusivity and excellence, but the daily reality told a different story. Diana documented it all with academic precision, each incident adding another data point to her research. The first week revealed clear patterns. Wealthy guests would consistently say, "You must be new here," despite her name tag showing 2 years of service. Their tone carried assumptions their words didn't dare speak. The scheduling system mysteriously placed her on slower weekday shifts, away from the lucrative weekend dinner service. When she inquired, Melissa Lujan cited guest preferences and experience requirements. During wine service training, sommelier James Patterson expressed surprise at her expertise. "Where did you learn about wine?" he asked, eyebrows raised as she perfectly described the characteristics of a rare Burgundy. "The same certification program you attended," Diana replied, maintaining eye contact until he looked away. The staff dining room painted its own picture of hierarchy. Senior staff, all white, claimed the prime tables near the windows. International staff clustered together, speaking in whispers about their experiences. Service assistants, predominantly people of color, ate quickly by the door, rushing to return to their stations. Diana's notebook captured the subtle choreography of exclusion. During morning briefings, managers reviewed VIP guests while assigning premium tables to what they called experienced staff. Their vocabulary was carefully coded. Traditional service, certain standards, maintaining our reputation. Wine tasting sessions revealed another layer of discrimination. Despite her sommelier certification, Diana found herself excluded from advanced wine presentations. "Some people just don't have the palate for it," she overheard one senior waitress say to another. The evening service exposed deeper biases. Wealthy black guests were smoothly redirected to the bar area. Asian clients automatically received chopsticks without being asked their preference. Middle Eastern families were seated away from windows, regardless of their requests. Her colleagues noticed her quiet competence. Line cooks shared stories of their own struggles over prep work. Housekeepers warned her about which managers to avoid during their brief interactions in the service corridors. Even some guests became allies, leaving notes of encouragement with their tips. The veteran waitresses watched her warily. Her perfect memory for wine vintages and her easy conversation in multiple languages threatened their carefully guarded territory. They didn't know about her research, but they sensed something different about her presence. One Tuesday evening, Diana overheard a conversation between Melissa and CEO Duncan near the service station. "She's too noticeable," Melissa said. "Keep her on lighter shifts," Duncan replied. "Our regulars have certain expectations." Diana added another entry to her notebook that evening. She recorded the date, time, and the location. She documented their words verbatim. noting the presence of 2 bus staff and a bartender who had also overheard the exchange. Her professors had taught her that changing corporate culture required understanding its deepest patterns. Each shift revealed new evidence of systemic issues. The promotion criteria favored what management called cultural fit over demonstrated competence. Training opportunities became mysteriously unavailable to certain staff members. Guest complaints carried different weight depending on which waiter received them. But Diana's strategy remained consistent. Document everything, maintain excellence, and prepare for the moment when all this data would serve its purpose. Her grandmother's wisdom guided her approach. Let them think they're writing your story, while you're actually writing theirs. Late October 2009 marked Diana's first day at the Four Seasons Oriental. Now, 8 months later, her leather-bound notebook, originally purchased for MBA class notes, had transformed into a detailed chronicle of institutional bias. The pages documented every slight, every misunderstanding, every carefully coded comment. The morning staff meeting provided her latest evidence. Standing before the ornate mirrors of the empty dining room, the restaurant director addressed his team. "Remember, our guests pay for an experience," he emphasized, scanning the room. His gaze lingered notably longer on the staff of color. "Some of you might need to adjust your presence to meet our standards." Diana's pen moved silently across the page, recording his exact words. Next to her, a veteran waitress with 15 years of experience received her section assignment, a dim corner near the kitchen doors. Meanwhile, a waitress hired just 2 weeks ago got the coveted window section overlooking the Boston Harbor. The wine cellar incident from last month proved particularly revealing. During inventory, Diana discovered a pricing discrepancy in the premium wines. When she brought this to management's attention, saving the restaurant thousands of dollars, Melissa Lujan merely nodded. The following week, credit for the discovery appeared in the staff newsletter under another waitress's name. Private events showcased the discrimination most clearly. At last week's high-profile charity gala, Diana overheard the event coordinator instructing staff placement: keep the front-facing positions appropriate. That evening, every visible service position was filled by white staff members, while equally qualified employees of color worked behind the scenes. Her documentation went beyond mere incidents. Since November, she'd tracked emerging patterns: the systematic rotation of staff when certain executives visited, the random selection process for advanced training opportunities, the subtle differences in how customer complaints were handled based on waitress demographics. Each page of her notebook told its own story of casual prejudice. The whispered comments echoed through her precise handwriting. "We need someone more refined for the ambassador's table," one manager had insisted. Another day brought the familiar refrain of, "Our regulars prefer a more traditional approach to service." Perhaps most telling was the false praise, dripping with surprise. "You're very articulate. Where did you actually study?" Each comment, meticulously recorded, formed another thread in the tapestry of systematic exclusion. Between the lines of her neat handwriting lay a deeper story. The story of experienced waitresses who never made management, of accents that mysteriously became communication issues, of qualifications that somehow never quite measured up to undefined standards. Just yesterday, while polishing glasses, Diana observed a telling interaction. A wealthy black couple, clearly executives, were guided to a back table despite requesting window seating. Minutes later, a white family in casual attire received the premium view without question. Diana noted not just the incident, but the ripple effects. The couple's dignified silence, the knowing glances between staff, the subtle reinforcement of unspoken hierarchies. Her documentation served multiple purposes. For her thesis, it provided raw data on institutional bias in luxury hospitality. For her career, it built a foundation for future change. But most importantly, it created an undeniable record of a system that thrived on deniability. Andrew Duncan's presence commanded attention the moment he entered a room. At 38, his tailored Italian suits and perfectly polished Oxford shoes spoke of old money and older prejudices. The youngest CEO in Boston's luxury hospitality sector carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never heard the word no. At least, not from anyone he considered his equal. The Four Seasons Oriental represented more than just another property in his portfolio. It was his crown jewel, a testament to what he called traditional values in hospitality. Under his leadership, the hotel had become Boston's premier destination for the elite, a status he guarded with unwavering vigilance. Diana observed him during his daily walks through the restaurant, noting how his demeanor shifted, depending on who stood before him. To wealthy guests, he was charm personified, his Boston Brahmin accent softening as he discussed wine vintages and summer homes in the Hamptons. To staff, he was distant royalty, acknowledging their presence only when absolutely necessary. His office, perched on the top floor, overlooked the harbor. Through the restaurant's service corridors, whispers circulated about his management style. Mr. Duncan believes in maintaining certain standards, supervisors would say, their tone carrying weighted meaning. Those who understood thrived, those who questioned disappeared from the schedule. What fascinated Diana most was Duncan's careful cultivation of his public image. In industry magazines, he championed innovation in hospitality. At charity galas, he spoke about opportunities for all. Yet here, in his flagship property, his true philosophy played out daily in subtle gestures and careful selections. His latest initiative revealed everything: a prestigious mentorship program for promising staff members. The candidates, handpicked by Duncan himself, shared a striking similarity in their backgrounds and appearances. When questioned about the selection criteria, his response became legendary among the staff. Some people naturally understand our clientele's expectations. Others, well, perhaps they'd be more comfortable in less prestigious establishments. Diana watched him now through the reflection in a polished silver tray, as he prepared to host potential investors from Dubai. His perfectly knotted tie and practiced smile masked something she had learned to recognize: a deep-seated belief in his right to define who belonged in his world and who didn't. The private dining room gleamed under crystal chandeliers as Diana arranged the final place setting for Duncan's meeting with the Dubai investors. The crystal silverware caught the light, each piece positioned with mathematical precision, a detail she knew the CEO would inspect personally. Through the polished mahogany doors, voices carried from the reception area. "Welcome to the Four Seasons Oriental." Duncan's voice held that particular warmth he reserved for guests of exceptional influence. "I trust your flight from Dubai was comfortable?" Diana's hands moved with practiced grace, adjusting the angle of each wineglass as she listened. The investors filed in, 3 men in impeccably tailored suits, accompanied by a woman whose elegant hijab and confident stride marked her as someone of significance. "Our head of international acquisitions," the lead investor introduced. Duncan's smile flickered for a fraction of a second. He hadn't expected a woman in this position. Diana noted the micro-expression while keeping her eyes lowered, focused on her task. "We've heard impressive things about your approach to luxury hospitality," the woman began, her Oxford-educated accent crisp and clear. "Particularly your claims about innovative service standards." Duncan launched into his practiced speech about excellence and tradition. Diana moved silently around the table, filling water glasses. She reached the woman executive's place just as Duncan said, "Our staff selection process ensures only those who truly understand luxury service make it through." The woman's dark eyes met Diana's for a moment. Something passed between them, a flash of recognition perhaps, or understanding. "And what criteria determine this understanding?" she asked, her tone carefully neutral. Well, Duncan smiled, gesturing broadly, our guests expect a certain atmosphere. We maintain very specific standards too. He paused as Diana began explaining the wine selection in fluent Arabic to the lead investor, who had gestured with a question about the vintage. The room's atmosphere shifted subtly. Duncan's jaw tightened. This wasn't part of his choreographed presentation. Diana continued her explanation, her pronunciation perfect, including regional variations that made the investor smile appreciatively. Your staff's linguistic abilities are impressive, the woman noted, watching Duncan's reaction. How many languages does your team typically speak? Before Duncan could respond, the lead investor asked Diana another question, this time about the wine's aging process. She answered in detailed Arabic, then smoothly switched to English to include the entire table in the discussion of the vineyard's history. Duncan's fingers drummed once on the table's surface. His tell when situations slipped from his control. Diana? His voice carried a warning edge. I'm sure our guests would prefer to discuss wine with our sommelier. Actually, the woman executive interjected, I find her knowledge quite comprehensive. Tell me, Diana, where did you study hospitality? The moment hung in the air like crystal about to shatter. Diana felt Duncan's stare, but kept her focus on the woman executive. I'm currently completing my MBA, specializing in luxury hospitality management. My thesis focuses on transforming corporate culture in high-end service industries. The lead investor leaned forward with interest. The woman executive's eyebrow arched slightly. And Duncan's face flushed as he realized his carefully orchestrated meeting had just veered dramatically off script. Have you ever been in a situation where your true capabilities were unexpectedly revealed? That moment when someone underestimating you suddenly realizes your real potential? We've all experienced times when keeping our composure spoke louder than any words could. Share your story in the comments below. Tell us about a time when your patience and preparation paid off in the most satisfying way. Your experience might inspire others who are waiting for their moment to shine. The air in the private dining room crackled with unspoken tension. Duncan's perfectly curated presentation had transformed into something entirely unexpected. His eyes darted between Diana and the investors, calculating damage control with every passing second. The woman executive's interest in Diana hadn't waned. Each question she asked peeled back another layer of the carefully maintained facade Duncan had built. The other investors, too, had shifted their attention, their expressions a mix of intrigue and reassessment. Diana maintained her professional composure, but she felt the weight of the moment. Years of preparation, months of documentation, and now this unexpected spotlight. It wasn't just about her anymore. Every qualified employee who'd been overlooked, every talent that had been dismissed, every voice that had been silenced, they were all present in this crystallizing moment. Duncan's fingers found his tie, adjusting it slightly. Another tell Diana had documented. The perfect Windsor knot suddenly felt too tight, his carefully controlled world shifting beneath his feet. The power dynamic in the room had altered, subtle but undeniable, like the first hairline crack in a fine china cup. The evening's tension reached its peak when Duncan seized what he thought was his moment of redemption. Perhaps, he announced, rising from his chair, we should sample the Chateau Lafite Rothschild 1982. Diana, why don't you let our head sommelier handle this particular vintage? The bottle in question, a $78,000 masterpiece of viticulture, rested in its cradle like a sleeping giant. The lead investor's eyes lit up at the mention, while the woman executive watched the scene unfold with measured interest. Diana felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about wine service. It was Duncan's calculated attempt to put her in what he considered her proper place. The head sommelier appeared at Duncan's signal, his white gloves pristine and his chain of office gleaming. Actually, the woman executive interjected, I'd be curious to see Diana's technique with such a prestigious vintage. Unless there's some reason she shouldn't. Duncan's smile tightened. Well, this particular wine requires a very specific handling, which begins with checking the ullage level and cork condition before presentation. Diana completed smoothly, already moving toward the wine cradle. Her movements were precise, practiced, each gesture a testament to years of study and preparation. She lifted the bottle with the reverence it deserved, presenting it at the perfect angle for inspection. You'll notice the fill level is impeccable, sitting just below the cork. The capsule shows no signs of seepage. Her voice carried the quiet confidence of expertise. The investors leaned forward, captivated not just by the wine, but by the unfolding drama. Diana continued her presentation in flawless French, explaining the vineyard's history and the specific weather conditions of 1982 that made this vintage legendary. The cork emerged with a gentle sigh, no crumbling, no breakage. Diana's nose found the bottle's mouth, her expression thoughtful. The initial bouquet suggests the wine is in perfect condition. No oxidation, no cork taint. She moved to decant, her movements flowing like a choreographed dance. The crystal decanter caught the light as the ruby liquid cascaded in a perfect stream, her technique ensuring optimal aeration while leaving the sediment undisturbed. Duncan's complexion had taken on an interesting shade. His attempt to undermine had instead provided Diana with a stage to showcase her expertise. The woman executive's subtle smile suggested she understood exactly what was happening. The wine needs approximately 45 minutes to breathe fully, Diana concluded, setting the decanter with practiced precision. Though given its age and complexity, I'd recommend we check its evolution every 15 minutes to catch it at its perfect peak. The lead investor nodded appreciatively. The head sommelier had backed away, his services clearly unnecessary. And Duncan gripped his water glass just a fraction too tightly, his knuckles white against the crystal. Duncan rose from his chair, straightening his bespoke suit jacket, a gesture Diana had come to recognize as his prelude to asserting dominance. While our staff's enthusiasm is admirable, he began, his voice carrying that particular tone reserved for public corrections, perhaps we should discuss the actual investment opportunity. He moved to stand behind Diana's position, his presence looming. After all, we wouldn't want to waste our distinguished guest's time with service staff perspectives. The word service carried enough weight to sink a lesser spirit. Though I must say, he continued, his smile not quite reaching his eyes, it's rather presumptuous for someone in your position to handle such invaluable wine. One wrong move with that bottle would cost more than your yearly salary. A few nervous chuckles emerged from other staff members hovering near the walls. The woman executive tilted her head, her expression unreadable. Interesting, you seem quite concerned about presumption, Mr. Duncan. Tell me, what exactly is the right position for someone with an MBA and advanced sommelier certification? Duncan's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. I'm sure Diana's studies are commendable. However, in this establishment, we value practical experience over academic. The 1982 Chateau Lafite Rothschild, Diana interjected quietly, her voice clear and steady, was harvested during an exceptional weather pattern that year. The summer drought stressed the vines precisely enough to concentrate the flavors, while late August rains provided just the right amount of relief for perfect ripening. The lead investor leaned forward, intrigued. You know the vintage's history? Diana. Duncan cut in sharply. I don't think our guests need a Wikipedia recitation of... Not Wikipedia, the woman executive interrupted, her eyes fixed on Diana. She's quoting Michel Delon's personal harvest notes. I interviewed him for my doctoral thesis on luxury brand management. She turned to Duncan, her gaze penetrating. Did you know you had such expertise on your staff? The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Duncan's attempt at humiliation had backfired spectacularly, and now he stood, caught between his prejudice and his investors' evident interest in Diana's knowledge. Diana's grandmother's pearls caught the light as she straightened her posture, each movement deliberate and dignified. 8 months of documentation, of waiting, of watching, all leading to this moment. Her voice, when it came, carried the quiet strength of generations. "Mr. Duncan," she began, meeting his gaze steadily, "you're right. Position is important. So let me clarify mine." She retrieved her small leather notebook from her apron pocket, its pages heavy with accumulated evidence. "I chose to work here specifically because the Four Seasons Oriental represents the pinnacle of luxury hospitality in Boston. My position as a waitress wasn't an accident. It was research. Every shift, every interaction, every instance of," she paused meaningfully, "selective treatment has been documented." The woman executive's eyebrows rose with professional interest. The other investors leaned forward, their expressions shifting from curiosity to focused attention. Diana continued, her tone maintaining its professional calm. "My MBA thesis examines how systemic bias in luxury hospitality affects both service quality and business performance. These past 8 months have provided extensive data." She opened her notebook, each page filled with her precise handwriting. For instance, the systematic redistribution of high-value tables based on waitstaff demographics, the random selection processes for advancement opportunities, the interesting pattern of guest complaints being weighted differently depending on who receives them. Duncan's face had lost its remaining color. The woman executive was now taking notes of her own. "But more importantly," Diana continued, her voice gaining strength without losing its composure, "I've documented how these practices impact revenue. When diverse waitstaff members are relegated to lower-value sections, we lose opportunities to connect with an increasingly international clientele. When linguistic skills are overlooked, we miss chances to enhance guest experiences. When talent is dismissed based on preconceptions, we waste valuable human capital." She turned to the investors, her professional demeanor unwavering. "Luxury isn't about exclusion. It's about exceptional experience. True luxury hospitality should elevate everyone who walks through these doors, whether they're serving or being served." The lead investor nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. The woman executive's smile had grown increasingly appreciative. "My grandmother," Diana concluded, touching her pearls lightly, "taught me that excellence is the best response to prejudice. She also taught me that real change requires more than individual success. It demands systematic transformation. That's not just my academic conclusion, Mr. Duncan. It's my business proposition." The silence that followed held the weight of shifting power. Diana stood her ground, poised and professional, while Duncan's carefully constructed world crumbled around his designer shoes. "Get out." Duncan's voice cracked like a whip across the private dining room. "You're fired. Get out of my hotel." His composed facade had shattered, revealing the raw prejudice beneath his polished exterior. The crystal glasses trembled as his fist met the table. "Security will escort you from the premises, and you can be certain no luxury hotel in Boston will ever." "No, Mr. Duncan." The woman executive's voice cut through his tirade, sharp as a blade. "I believe you're the one who doesn't understand his position here." She turned to the lead investor, who nodded grimly. Diana removed her apron with deliberate grace, folding it with the same precision she'd used to arrange their place settings. Her grandmother's pearls caught the light as she gathered her notebook. 8 months of documented truth that had just changed everything. "Security won't be necessary," Diana said quietly, her dignity intact. "But you might need them in the coming weeks, Mr. Duncan. The truth has a way of demanding attention." She walked toward the door, her heels marking each step with purpose. Behind her, she heard the woman executive say, "Now, about that ownership transition we discussed. When was the last time you stood your ground in the face of injustice? That moment when speaking your truth felt both terrifying and necessary? Diana's story reminds us that sometimes the most powerful response to discrimination isn't loud confrontation. It's quiet, methodical documentation and strategic patience. Share your story of standing up against prejudice in the comments below. How did you maintain your dignity while fighting for change? Your experience might give someone else the courage they need to speak up. The morning after her dismissal from the Four Seasons Oriental, Diana sat in her MBA advisor's office, her leather notebook open on the desk between them. What Duncan had seen as his moment of triumph became the cornerstone of her thesis. Transforming Luxury Hospitality, a ground-level study of systemic change. Her research caught fire in the industry. The woman executive from Dubai hadn't just been an investor. She was a board member of Paramount Global Hospitality Group. Within weeks, Diana's phone rang with an offer. A management fellowship designed to fast-track emerging leaders. Your experience, the woman executive told her, is exactly what this industry needs to evolve. But more importantly, your approach to documenting and addressing systemic issues shows the kind of leadership we're looking for. Diana's rise through Paramount's ranks was methodical, each step calculated and purposeful. She started in their London property, where her fluency in French and Arabic helped secure 3 major Middle Eastern investment deals. 6 months later, she launched a diversity initiative that increased international guest satisfaction scores by 40%. Paris came next. As assistant general manager of their flagship French property, Diana introduced a revolutionary staff development program. She remembered every slight she'd experienced as a waitress, transforming each into an opportunity for systemic improvement. Under her leadership, employee retention rates soared, while discrimination complaints dropped to 0. By 2015, at just 28, Diana became the youngest regional director in Paramount's history. Her portfolio included properties across Europe and the Middle East. Each hotel she touched transformed from within, her changes rippling through the industry like waves from a stone dropped in still water. But Diana never forgot her roots. Every property she managed instituted a scholarship program for service staff pursuing higher education. Every management team underwent rigorous bias training. Every hiring policy was rewritten to emphasize talent over tradition. Success isn't just about proving people wrong, she often told her teams. It's about making sure others don't face the same barriers. Her grandmother's pearls remained her constant companion, a reminder of where she came from and why she fought for change. The industry watched as Diana's properties consistently outperformed their competitors. Her methods, once dismissed as idealistic, became case studies in hospitality management programs worldwide. The same institutions that had once overlooked candidates like her now competed to implement her strategies. 2016 marked Diana's first TED Talk, The View from Both Sides, Transforming Service Industry Power Dynamics. The video went viral, not just within hospitality circles but across corporate America. Her story of the $78,000 wine bottle and quiet documentation resonated with millions who'd faced similar barriers. Excellence isn't just about proving your worth, she told the audience, touching her grandmother's pearls. It's about changing the metrics by which worth is measured. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Harvard Business Review featured her methodology in their cover story, The Hardison Approach: How One Woman's Documentation Changed Corporate Culture. Her notebook system became a template for workplace discrimination monitoring across industries. Law firms, tech companies, and financial institutions began adopting her systematic documentation approach. By 2018, Diana's influence extended beyond hospitality. She served on corporate boards, advised equity firms on cultural transformation, and launched a foundation providing scholarships to service industry workers pursuing advanced degrees. Each move expanded her platform for creating systemic change. The World Economic Forum invited her to lead their hospitality innovation panel. In Davos, surrounded by the same type of power players who had once dismissed her, Diana presented data proving that diverse, equitable workplaces outperform traditional models by significant margins. "Luxury isn't about exclusion," became her signature phrase, quoted in business schools and boardrooms alike. "It's about creating experiences that elevate everyone involved in the transaction, from the guest to the waitress." The accolades poured in like fine wine into crystal, each recognition adding depth to her influence. Forbes celebrated her vision by featuring her in their 40 Under 40 list, while Time magazine crowned her as one of the 100 most influential people shaping global business culture. The International Hospitality Innovation Award acknowledged her revolutionary approach, and 3 prestigious business schools bestowed honorary doctorates, validating what the industry had already learned. Diana Hardison wasn't just changing luxury hospitality, she was redefining it. But Diana's most significant achievement came through her mentorship program. By 2020, she had helped over 1,000 service industry workers pursue advanced degrees. Each mentee received not just financial support, but strategic guidance on documenting and addressing systemic barriers in their workplaces. "The notebook," she would tell them, "is your most powerful tool, not because it records injustice, but because it transforms personal frustration into actionable data." Her quarterly leadership forums became legendary in the industry. Current and former service workers gathered to share experiences and strategies. Each session ended with Diana's signature question: "How will you use your position to hold the door open for others?" The Wall Street Journal dubbed her the Quiet Revolutionary in a 2021 profile. The article detailed how her methods had transformed workplace culture in over 500 luxury properties worldwide. But more importantly, it highlighted the ripple effects, how her mentees were now leading their own transformations across multiple industries. Every achievement, every accolade, every breakthrough served her larger mission. Diana wasn't just climbing the corporate ladder. She was rebuilding it, transforming it from a narrow path of privilege into a broad avenue of opportunity. In late 2021, Diana unveiled her masterpiece, Hardison Hospitality Solutions. More than just a consulting firm, it was a complete reimagining of luxury service culture. The company's launch made waves across the industry, not just for its bold vision, but for its revolutionary approach to hospitality management. The foundation of HHS rested on 3 pillars, each drawn from Diana's personal journey. First, the Excellence Through Equity program, which transformed hiring and promotion practices. Second, the Service Innovation Institute, training luxury properties to leverage diversity as a competitive advantage. Third, the Legacy Leaders Initiative, identifying promising waitstaff for advanced development opportunities. What set HHS apart wasn't just its mission, it was its methodology. Every client property underwent a ground-level assessment, with consultants working alongside waitstaff to understand systemic barriers. Diana's original notebook system evolved into sophisticated software, tracking everything from microaggressions to missed opportunities for revenue growth. The results spoke volumes. Properties implementing the HHS system saw average revenue increases of 40% within the first year. Employee retention rates doubled. Guest satisfaction scores reached unprecedented levels, particularly among international clientele. But Diana's masterstroke came in her hiring strategy. She specifically recruited from service backgrounds, building a team of consultants who understood both sides of the luxury hospitality equation. Former waitstaff who had faced discrimination now returned to properties as executive advisors, their lived experience informing every recommendation. We're not just changing policies. Diana explained in her company's launch video, her grandmother's pearls gleaming under the lights. We're changing perspectives. True luxury isn't about creating barriers, it's about breaking them down while elevating everyone's experience. By early 2022, HHS had a waiting list of luxury properties seeking their services. The company's success caught the attention of Paramount Global, leading to discussions that would bring Diana full circle, back to the very hotel where her journey began. Have you ever dreamed of turning your challenges into a force for change? Diana transformed her experience as a waitress into a movement that revolutionized an entire industry. What's your story of turning obstacles into opportunities? Share in the comments below. What system would you change if you had the chance? What documentation are you keeping? What revolution are you quietly planning? Your story might inspire someone else who's gathering their evidence and waiting for their moment. March 2022. The news broke like a thunderclap across the luxury hospitality industry. Paramount Global had acquired the Four Seasons Oriental Hotel Group. But the real story lay in the fine print, the appointment of their new CEO. The press release was masterfully understated. Paramount Global is pleased to announce Diana Hardison as Chief Executive Officer of their newly acquired Four Seasons Oriental Properties. Ms. Hardison brings unprecedented expertise in luxury hospitality transformation. Behind the scenes, the decision had been years in the making. The woman executive who had witnessed Diana's confrontation with Duncan 12 years ago was now Paramount's chairperson. She had tracked Diana's rise, watched her revolutionize property after property, and waited for the perfect moment. The acquisition team moved with surgical precision. Board meetings were scheduled, transition plans were drafted, but one detail remained carefully guarded: the new CEO's identity. Duncan, still ensconced in his top-floor office, remained blissfully unaware of the approaching seismic shift. Diana reviewed the final acquisition documents in her Manhattan office, her grandmother's pearls catching the morning light. The leather notebook that had started her journey sat on her desk, its pages now yellowed with time, but its truth undimmed. Everything's in place, her legal team confirmed. The transition happens next week. She picked up the property report, studying recent photos of the hotel's familiar marble floors and crystal chandeliers. 12 years had changed so much, yet that space remained frozen in time. The same exclusive atmosphere, the same subtle barriers, the same need for transformation. Have the diversity audit teams been assembled? Diana asked, though she knew the answer. Her HHS consultants were already in position, gathering data, just as she once had. Yes, and we've identified several long-term waitstaff for immediate promotion consideration. Diana smiled, remembering her own time carrying plates through those gilded corridors. Make sure they understand, this isn't about revenge, it's about restoration, about making things right. The morning sun painted shadows across her office wall, not unlike those cast by the hotel's chandeliers so many years ago. But this time, Diana wasn't in the shadows. She was the light. The morning of Diana's return to the Four Seasons Oriental dawned clear and crisp. Boston's financial district sparkled under early spring sunshine, the hotel's facade gleaming like a crown jewel against the sky. At precisely 9 a.m., her car pulled up to the entrance she had once used as a waitress. The doorman's eyes widened in recognition. He had been there that night 12 years ago. Now he watched as Diana emerged from the executive car, elegant in a tailored suit that cost more than 3 months of her former waitress salary. Her grandmother's pearls graced her neck, a bridge between past and present. The lobby fell silent as she crossed the marble floors, her heels marking a steady rhythm that echoed through the space. Employees stopped mid-task, recognition dawning on the faces of those who had been there during her waitress days. The whisper started immediately, spreading through the hotel like wildfire. Is that the waitress who? But she's wearing a Chanel suit. Diana moved through the space with measured grace, noting how little had changed. The same crystal chandeliers, the same subtle hierarchies, the same careful segregation of who served and who was served, for now. The executive elevator, the one she had never been allowed to use, opened at her approach. As she stepped in, she caught a glimpse of the restaurant where it had all begun. The private dining room door was closed, but she could picture every detail behind it. The wine cradle, the silver trays, the carefully arranged place settings. Her old leather notebook sat in her briefcase, a reminder of where this journey began. Beside it lay the transition documents that would reshape the hotel's entire power structure. 12 years of preparation had led to this moment. The elevator opened directly into the executive floor. Duncan's assistant, the same woman who had once dismissed Diana's complaints about discrimination, looked up from her desk. The color drained from her face as recognition hit. "Good morning," Diana said pleasantly. "Please inform Mr. Duncan that his 9:30 meeting with the new CEO has arrived." The assistant's hands trembled as she reached for the phone. Through the glass walls of the corner office, Diana could see Duncan at his desk, unaware that his world was about to shift on its axis. She waited, standing in the spot where she had once been told she didn't belong. Now she stood not just as an equal, but as his superior. The leather notebook in her briefcase held the past. The documents in her hand would shape the future. The assistant's voice quavered, "Mr. Duncan will see you now." Duncan rose from behind his mahogany desk, his practiced smile freezing as recognition dawned. The expensive pen in his hand clattered to the desktop, breaking the heavy silence. "Impossible," he whispered, his face draining of color. At 50, he had aged more than the 12 years that had passed, each crease in his face a testament to the weight of maintaining old prejudices. "Please sit down, Mr. Duncan," Diana said calmly, taking the CEO's chair, his chair, with natural authority. "We have much to discuss about the future of the Four Seasons Oriental." His legs seemed to give way as he sank into the visitor's chair, the same chair where he had once seated countless lesser employees for dismissal. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. "The waitress," he managed, his voice barely a whisper. "You're the new Chief Executive Officer," Diana completed for him, echoing how she had once completed his wine descriptions. "Though I believe you knew me better as the waitress who didn't belong here." She placed her old leather notebook on the desk between them, Duncan's eyes fixed on the notebook, recognition flickering across his face. "That night, the Dubai investors were quite impressed with my wine knowledge," Diana smiled, touching her grandmother's pearls. "Though perhaps not as impressed as they were with my documentation of systemic discrimination within your organization." She opened the notebook, its pages heavy with 12 years of vindication. The woman executive that night? She's now the chairperson of Paramount Global. She's been following my career with great interest, particularly my methods for transforming luxury properties into truly inclusive establishments. Duncan's hand moved to adjust his tie. That old tell she had documented so long ago. "You planned this, all of it?" "No, Mr. Duncan," Diana replied, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 similar conversations happening in corner offices across America. "You planned this. Every dismissal, every slight, every moment you chose exclusion over excellence. I simply document it." The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the office that had once been the apex of Duncan's power. Now those shadows seemed to shrink from Diana's presence, as if recognizing a new order. She let the silence stretch, watching Duncan's world realign itself. His eyes darted between her face, the notebook, and the CEO nameplate that now bore her name. Each glance carried the weight of 1,000 assumptions shattered. Through the glass walls, she could see staff gathering, word of her arrival spreading through the building like electricity through water. Former colleagues, once fellow waitstaff, stood straighter as they passed. Those who had witnessed her dismissal 12 years ago now watched a different scene unfold. Diana opened her briefcase, removing a stack of documents that would reshape the hotel's future. Each paper represented a change: new hiring policies, promotion criteria, training programs. But before implementing any of them, she wanted this moment to sink in. For Duncan, for the watching staff, for every person who'd ever been told they didn't belong. Sometimes she knew the most powerful move was simply taking your rightful place and letting the truth speak for itself. Have you ever imagined returning to a place that once rejected you, but this time in a position of power? That moment when the tables turn and you have the choice between revenge and reform? Diana chose to transform rather than punish, to create change rather than settle scores. What would you do with such a moment? How would you handle the power to change a system that once excluded you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might help someone else facing their own moment of truth. Diana's first 100 days as CEO transformed the Four Seasons Oriental from within. The changes rippled through the hotel like waves of light through crystal, touching every corner, every position, every policy. Her first action set the tone, promoting a housekeeper to assistant manager after discovering she held an unused hospitality degree. Next came a kitchen staff member whose fluency in 4 languages had been ignored for years. Each promotion sent a clear message: talent would no longer be overlooked because of prejudice. The renowned standards of excellence were rewritten. Gone were the coded phrases about maintaining certain appearances. In their place stood clear, measurable criteria based on skill, innovation, and guest satisfaction. The private dining room that had once been her battlefield became a training center where wait staff learned about wine from certified sommeliers, regardless of their background. Diana introduced the Legacy Program, offering education subsidies to service staff pursuing degrees. The same leather notebook system she had used to document discrimination now became a tool for tracking progress and identifying talent. Every employee carried one, recording not just problems but solutions. The hotel's hiring practices underwent a revolutionary transformation. Interview panels now included staff from all levels. Promotion decisions required diverse input. Even the uniforms were redesigned, still elegant but now celebrating rather than suppressing individual identity. But perhaps the most powerful change was in the daily atmosphere. Waitstaff walked taller, spoke more confidently, knew their voices mattered. Guests commented on the new energy, the authentic service, the way every interaction felt genuine rather than performative. Revenues soared. Guest satisfaction reached record highs. The Four Seasons Oriental became known not just for its luxury, but for its innovation in human capital development. Other hotels sent observers, trying to understand how Diana had achieved what industry veterans had claimed impossible: creating true excellence through genuine inclusion. 1 month into the transformation, Diana called Duncan to her office, his former sanctuary, now a symbol of change. He entered like a man walking on shifting ground, his once confident stride reduced to careful steps. "Please sit." Diana gestured to the visitor's chair. On her desk lay 2 items: her old leather notebook and a sleek folder marked Transition Agreement. "You have 2 choices, Mr. Duncan," she began, her grandmother's pearls catching the morning light. "You can fight these changes, cling to the old ways, and watch your reputation dissolve in a very public examination of your management practices." She touched the notebook meaningfully. "Or you can be part of the transformation story." Duncan's fingers found his tie, that familiar tell. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A graceful transition. You'll announce your retirement, citing a desire to make way for new leadership in luxury hospitality. You'll publicly endorse our inclusion initiatives. In return, your legacy becomes one of evolution rather than discrimination. She watched him process the offer, seeing the exact moment he realized this was more mercy than he had shown others. More than he had shown her. Why, he asked finally. Why offer me this way out? Diana stood, walking to the window where she had once watched him dismiss countless employees. Because this isn't about revenge, Mr. Duncan. It's about change. Real, lasting change requires giving people the chance to be better than their worst moments. He looked at her then, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time. I was wrong, he said quietly, that night, about where you belonged. I know, Diana replied simply. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge now? The transformation of the Four Seasons Oriental became a Harvard Business School case study by 2023. The Hardison method entered the corporate lexicon, symbolizing the perfect balance of accountability and progress. Revenue had doubled. Employee turnover dropped to industry record lows. The waitlist for entry-level positions grew longer than the reservation list for presidential suites, but the real impact rippled far beyond balance sheets. Other luxury hotels began adopting Diana's notebook system, creating their own versions of the legacy program. Corporate America watched as the Four Seasons Oriental proved that excellence and equity weren't just compatible, they were inseparable. Diana's quarterly town halls became industry events, drawing executives from across the globe. They came to see a luxury hotel where wait staff spoke multiple languages, where housekeepers became managers, where service was elevated because every employee was elevated. The Wall Street Journal called it the quiet revolution in luxury service. But Diana saw it differently. In her first keynote speech after the transformation, she stood before the industry's elite, her grandmother's pearls gleaming under the lights. This isn't a revolution, she told them. It's a restoration, a return to what luxury should have always been. The art of recognizing and nurturing excellence wherever it appears. Every great transformation begins with someone brave enough to document the truth. Diana's journey from waitress to CEO wasn't just about personal success, it was about creating lasting change. What system are you witnessing that needs transformation? What truths are you documenting? Remember, sometimes the most powerful revolution starts with a simple notebook, and the courage to write down what others prefer to ignore. Share this story if you believe in the power of patient, purposeful change. Your voice could be the catalyst someone else needs to start their own journey. Diana Hardison's story isn't just about a waitress becoming CEO. It's about the power that lies in patient documentation of truth. In an age where viral confrontations grab headlines, she showed us that real change often comes through quiet, methodical resistance and strategic patience. Today, the Hardison method continues to transform workplaces across America. Her leather notebook system has become a powerful tool for employees facing discrimination, while her legacy program has helped thousands rise from service positions to corporate leadership. But perhaps the most powerful lesson is this: sometimes, the person others try to make invisible becomes the very force that changes everything. Diana didn't just break through the glass ceiling, she rebuilt the entire structure, ensuring others would have a clear path up. Here at Tales of Light, we believe in sharing stories that illuminate the path to justice. Stories that remind us how systematic documentation of truth can shake foundations of inequality. Stories that prove patience and preparation, combined with purpose, can transform entire industries. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue bringing these powerful narratives of transformation to light. Remember, somewhere right now, someone is writing in their own notebook, waiting for their moment to change everything.